Howdy, welcome to Horticulture Innovators, a podcast series where we will explore impactful innovations in horticulture. I'm Amit Dhingra, your host. I'm a professor and head of the Department of Horticultural Sciences at Texas A&M University. In each episode, we'll explore the inspiring stories of the pioneers who are contributing to sustainability, wellness, and food security through their amazing work in horticulture. Howdy! Today we are excited to have the next gen version of Horticulture Innovators, and today with me I have one of our department's graduate students and an undergraduate student. I'll request them to introduce themselves. Mason?
Howdy, my name is Mason Marshall. I am a third-year Ph.D. student here in the Department of Horticultural Sciences under Dr. Michael Arnold. I have been here throughout my Bachelor's and my Master's degree as well, so I'm quite fond of our department and the relationships I've built with those here and outside.
Wonderful. Trishia?
My name is Trishia Nguyen. I am a junior horticultural sciences, Bachelor of Science emphasis, and I'm looking to do landscape design in the future.
That's cool. Hey, this is exciting to be speaking to you all because we always feature people who have, made an impact on society and they have contributed to the horticulture field through some of their discoveries. I mean, that's great. That's the history. We've got to look towards the future, what you're going to do, what you're planning. And also, I think today we really want to see how did you get into horticulture to begin with? Because we don't use that term in our society anymore. So how did you even find this discipline and what? Maybe you have answers. Maybe that's where we innovate. How do we get to people and tell them this is such a great discipline to get your degrees in? We'll start with you, Trishia.
So I'm from one of the outer suburbs of Houston. So my high school did not really have much of an FFA program, whereas I feel many horticulture students enter because they have some knowledge adjacent to FFA or 4-H. So I actually kind of picked my major kind of on a whim, just understanding that it was related to plants, which is something that I liked, but I didn't really fully understand what horticulture was until after my first year of school. So it was kind of a developing experience. I think after I took Hort 201 with Dr. Reed, that's when I realized this is pretty, this is a nice class. And I think many transfer students feel that way too after they take Hort 201 and then they realize this is something that they want to do.
What's your story, Mason?
So I got involved in horticulture soon after high school, right into community college. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a pharmacist, but I took a chance and worked at a local nursery. And I learned everything about horticulture within about 2.5 years. And then I transferred here as a transfer student 2 years in. So when I came, it was the fun courses, if you will, no chemistry and math. It was all horticulture. Mm-hmm. And my first course was also Hort 201 with Dr. Reed, and that really excited me about horticulture here. Ever since then, I graduated in 2019, and it took me about 2 years after being a transfer student to finish up. It was rather fun. So I really knew nothing about horticulture before that job, and it was just someone that took a chance on me and was excited to teach me about horticulture and get me excited about the world, and that's what excited me.
Cool. Well, this is excellent. You just made a few comments that really brought some questions, but I brought up the point that the society doesn't use horticulture as a term anymore. So my new icebreaker in every public meeting I go or new people I meet, I say, I have a question for you. Do you know what is horticulture? Because I always say I'm from the Department of Horticultural Sciences, or I study horticulture, or I do research, and people are nodding their heads very yeah. I was like, oh, but do you know what is horticulture? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes I find 9 times out of 10, people really have no idea of it. But then you remind them what it is, and they go, oh, okay, yeah. So let me ask you, how would you define horticulture? What is horticulture as a student of horticulture? Take a chance.
I would say that it's just the application of the plant sciences. So whether that be botany or more like the biological side, once that content and knowledge is put out there, horticulture is the application of it into human use, whether that be for agriculture, floristry, or for landscape.
Yeah. I think that's a good definition. I know we have a large one. I can't quite think of what it was, but in essence, it's just like, the art and science of growing plants, and that's such a wide term because the arts is floral design and landscape, and then you have the hard sciences. But it all encompasses plant science and ornamental and fruit crop and the things that make us healthy and enjoy life. So,
well, that's interesting you bring that up because I think this has been kind of the understanding. It's also giving me some insight what we need to do better. Well, in my opinion, it's the art, the science, the business of producing and improving everything that is healthful, edible, and beautiful.
HEB.
We start our day with coffee, and that's horticulture. We start our day with horticulture. Special occasions, flowers come in. That's horticulture. I think, but people just see that part, right? They don't realize that somebody bred those flowers or that fruit. It required understanding of the genetic mechanisms behind that, disease resistance, trying to understand how that worked out. So it really spans. Well, I liked your answer when you say it's for human use. The need is really but it kind of connects all the way back to the molecules where we're trying to understand. So the research, for example, in horticulture around the country is really focusing on every aspect of plants, right? So I think this is where horticulture gets lost and stereotyped in because that term is so old. It goes back to the Latin term, which basically says garden, but it's so much more. But I think it was trying to say Garden of Eden, where everything was available. But that's pretty cool. And then you talked about fun courses. Who said chemistry is not fun? Come on.
Well, I say that chemistry was hard, but organic chemistry was really fun. We take Chem 222 here, and I had a great professor for that. But I took all of my hardcore courses back at community college, for me, it's hard here at A&M. Some of these classes can be 300-400 students, and I like a closer knit community, which is also why horticulture is nice because our class size is real small, and you can. We're a large department, but we have an intimate class size where you can interact. Yeah.
Well, I think the big part is that, interestingly, you said OChem is great because a lot of people find that scary. I think you mentioned a key point, good teachers. And I think we need to emphasize that more. I mean, when I did my Ph.D., I just enjoyed working with undergrads and other people. So I love to teach. Not everybody loves to do everything. I get it. So,
sure.
But I think we need to focus on that skill as well because I'm sure we can all share this story. One good teacher inspired us to do what we do, right? Well, I just want to switch the topic a little bit. Is like, so as you are studying horticulture in different fields, maybe you can speak a little bit about what you're doing right now. I know you've been involved in a lot of research opportunities as well. And of course, for your PhD, based on you're working on some projects. Do you want to share with some of your experiences and how that has enriched your undergraduate degree?
So I started, as soon as I started college in the fall of 2022, I got into a research lab in the biology department, and I was doing crepe myrtle tissue culture there, and then we were developing new protocols to introduce materials that didn't have an established protocol yet, to bring it from the field into in vitro. And that was a great experience. I did that for 2.5 years. I worked on some posters. I did some manuscripts. So I kind of went off on the deep end for at least undergrad research, I feel like, compared to some other horticulture students. Because normally you don't really get into it until your junior year or so. But then I got burnt out pretty quickly, if I'm being honest. I spent a lot of late nights in the lab. And on a whim, for the horticulture club, I took Dr. Bergner's intro landscaping course because we're competitive. I think everyone in this department is pretty competitive. So I took his intro landscaping course just so that way I could compete as a design student at NCLC, the Collegiate Landscaping Competition. And I did the competition. I thought that was so fun. I went there in my head more as like a science or research student, but as I kept talking to all these landscapers and seeing how much they enjoyed their jobs and like their work-life balance was fantastic, they loved what they did, and I was really inspired. So I came out of that thinking oh, do I really want to do research? Because I felt like the career path that I wanted for myself down the road with research, I would need to do a master's, probably a PhD, maybe some post research work before I could even touch, being a professor or, being involved like professionally within research. So I was like, whoa, I got a little overwhelmed. So I've been kind of pivoting towards landscape design, and it's come surprisingly naturally to me, I think, because I had a background in arts. So I've been very, very excited about it.
That's excellent. Just a few comments. I know that research can be daunting, but the point is, some of us like me, we love it.
Yeah.
I mean, we thrive in it, so it doesn't feel like I work a day in my life. But all of us are wired differently, and of course have preferences. So I just wanted to encourage people,
of course.
find your passion for what you want to do. But also it highlights the opportunity that exists in our department where you can evaluate what will work for you. And I've had folks through my career, undergrads, who started as freshmen. They've done 4 years, but they become successful because you learn so much more than just research.
Yeah.
It's people interaction, it's professional development, it's leadership skills. Would you comment on that? I mean, what all did that teach you?
Yeah, I don't regret any of my time doing research. Like, my parents were wondering, they were talking to me, they're like, well, I mean, you spent so much time doing all this stuff, and now you're doing something that feels so totally different. But I feel, even my minors that I've picked up in ecology and bioenvironmental sciences, I don't regret them at all, because I feel like it's given me such a great background for whatever else I wanted to pursue, and it has really increased, I feel like, my leadership skills and my skills to work independently. I think research really needed me to do that and learn that early on, whereas I felt like I was really prepared for when I started really getting into landscaping in terms of speaking with clients, being comfortable in myself, working with them. So.
That's fascinating. I think this speaks to volumes to your efforts, and I think one example I can kind of summarize is if you join college, when you join college, take it head on. Put everything in there. All right. So yeah.
I was gonna say, when it comes to imaging for horticulture, as I've spoken with a lot of industry professionals, they identify themselves as like, I'm a breeder, I'm a landscaper, I'm a researcher. It'd be kind of nice, I think, to also kind of spread the word horticulture if they really just identify themselves as well as a horticulturalist. And that would, when they talk to younger people or to wider audiences, that would reaffirm that while I specialize in this field, horticulture is like my base home, and that is the industry that I'm impacting.
That's a very important point you bring up. I think there's an effort coming from several groups right now to set up that Seed Your Future website. And that's where they're really aggregating all the possible jobs under the discipline horticulture. I think that's the effort. Somewhere, everybody wanted to create their own little identity. But what really, while that was great, everybody should have, that choice. But the whole idea is that it really reduced the use of term horticulture. And that's why I think we are trying to do that. But outside of the United States, people use the term horticulture. It's a well and thriving term. But we are trying to just, in our own little way, as the Department of Horticultural Sciences at Texas A&M University, we are doing our efforts. So thank you for joining in, to sending that message. I hope we will do that. And I think the messaging is, you'll be calling yourself a horticulturist, and I'm saying, but I'm a landscape architect.
Exactly.
Well, that's great. Excellent. Thank you.
Point.
Yeah. Hey, Mason, why don't you share with us, what have you been working on for your research project?
Sure. So in my PhD project, I work on Ratibida columnifera, which is the prairie coneflower. I work under Dr. Mike Arnold, and it was a project that was kicked off by his previous student, Caitlin Hopkins. Essentially, what we're working on now is ornamental selections, crossbreeding, and I'm trying to get off some cut flower research too, since I have some floral design love and background.
Perfect.
We started this project, about 2 years ago. It was a large-scale diversity panel in the field. We have seed that Dr. Arnold's collected from around South Central United States. From that, we have selected about 12, 13 different architectural selections and floral selections, and I'm hoping to work with some type of commercial supplier that's interested in one for the market. It's been a new crop for me to work on, and I've learned a lot and experienced setback, but that's how you learn with the crop. So it's been good. Lots of interesting things, pests, diseases, but it's been beneficial because it's things that aren't really well documented. So we've been able to kind of share that along the way with others and learn ourselves more in deep about the crop.
Well, what you just shared your journey, I was saying earlier, horticulture is just sometimes stereotyped as, oh, just flowers or just landscape mowing.
Yes.
You just shared seed collection. That's plant collection. That's a very common thing. Diversity selection. Then germplasm, and then you talked about breeding. You talked about disease documentation. So just an illustration, I would even add there's the part of genomics. People could sequence the genomes of these and determine genes that identify what determines architecture.
Yeah, that's actually been something we've quite interested in. I'd like to team up with someone to work on that because essentially it's 5-6 different species of this genus, and the one we're working on is most widely seen across the United States. Interestingly, the seed that Dr. Arnold collected kind of in the King Ranch area in South Texas overlaps with the second species, and from that seed collection you have just wild genetics, if you will. And we have seen all different types of architectural traits. So we have some upright flowers that are seen more in southern Mexican species. We have different foliage types that are seen in Louisiana coastal species. So inherently we think we have some interspecific hybridization going on, but you can't really hard prove that until you get the genetics to play in and see where that lineage comes from.
Well, I want to switch gears a little bit. You guys are at the forefront of studying horticulture. You are going to inherit the next phase of academics and industry. What happens in horticulture? You're going to be the leaders. I just wanted to hear from you. What do you think are the future discoveries, innovations that may come or should be there as well? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know you're doing your specific research areas, getting specific degrees. You will obviously branched into multiple things with your 2 minors, I just heard, right? And you talk about work-life balance. I think you're harmonizing the work and life. So, but you want to speak a little bit about what discoveries you think will solve our issues, or what are the burning issues that need innovations?
I feel like as we continue to expand in terms of like building and urbanization, I think one of the biggest things is kind of figuring out how we could place more plants in places that don't currently have them. The built environment is pretty harsh with a lot of concrete, a lot of metal, and there's that idea of biophilia where people want to have plants around them, and it increases our mental health. It like makes us feel better to have plants around us. So I feel like if we could figure out different maybe mediums that we could grow plants in, or find plants that are hardier for the built environment, I think that would be very beneficial.
So you're talking about genetics and breeding part, but also manufacturing of new media, which, well, a lot of people don't know what is media. So the potting mixes, sort of kind of arrangements where plants can,
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to allude to. I'm more of a passion with ornamental horticulture and production, and that's kind of what woke me up in that 2-year working in a nursery. Was when you look in the landscape, residential, commercial, every single plant you see was grown by someone in a nursery to a capacity. One of the most pressing issues right now for horticulture at large with production is media and substrates. Trying to find alternative media, different substrate blending, things like that. Huge research field right now. Another thing going on with that is precision application of either water or chemicals, trying to find plants that can be low water use that are adapted to that, or can be adapted to more brackish or saline water as you're in more built environments or environments that have adverse water quality over time.
So what do you want to discover?
What do I want to discover? That's a good question.
To benefit horticulture.
To benefit horticulture.
People, you know?
I'm really into finding plants that have good ecosystem services, trying to bring native plants are all the rage again right now. And they should have always been, but trying to get plants that are more well adapted in the landscape. And I think trying to find plants, selections, wild plants, and bring them to market that can solve multiple purposes in the landscape, pollinators, beautification, things like that.
Tricia.
Discovery is a big word. I guess in terms of the pathway I'd like to go down, maybe not so much of a discovery, but to kind of endorse or push forward, I'd like to encourage more landscape design that is both beautiful but still functional. I feel like a lot of the architectural viewpoints is that it's very experimental, very conceptual, and while those things are cool, I feel like reasonably within people's actual budgets and within a given space that's already existing, it's hard to start from scratch. You know, a lot of these ideas, these buildings, large curves, lots of metal, glass materials, those are, I think, a little bit unrealistic, you know, for the average consumer. But having design that still accomplishes what the client needs while still encouraging, you know, to be more sustainable, to have plants that provide more services, or, you know, have a building that serves to be more than just a building for people, but for a space. Sure, I think that would be something I'd like to push for.
That's pretty cool. And you used the word previously, fun. I just wanted to hear, what do you guys do for fun? I mean, it's all, you know, they say all work and no play makes a person, a dull person, whatever. But what do you guys do for fun?
You know, it's funny. I think when you talk to most horticultural people, they don't do horticultural stuff on the side or at their home, but I do. I like growing plants. I have a cactus collection and things like that.
Cactus collection. Tell us more about that.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, everyone got, I feel like, some type of hobby during COVID.
Yeah.
And mine was shrimp tanks and cactus. So
shrimp tanks?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
we'll go back to the shrimp. But essentially, I had just been real interested in cactus and started buying some exotic cactus online in Austin. And I have these professional grow lights in my house or apartment, and I keep them there over the winter, and then outside everything comes out. At one point, I think I had about 100 or 200 different little 4-inch pots of cactus, but that was kind of my baby for a long time.
Do any of them glow?
Good question. I had the glow-in-the-dark petunia last year. What is it called? Firefly petunia,
I think so, yeah.
Very interesting petunia, but yeah, the first ornamental glow-in-the-dark, well, commercially glow-in-the-dark.
So you're a total plant nerd.
I love plants, yes. Okay. That's my life.
What about shrimp?
Yeah, so the shrimp, I wanted to get a fish tank, which Trisha's more of a pro at that. She can talk about her aquatic tanks. But I had just got a nice little tank and started aquascaping and had shrimp in it and fish. And then started pouring more and more money into the shrimp. Yeah, it was really fun.
Did you fish the shrimp as well?
I haven't, but there's actually places you can go fish shrimp. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's cool. What do you do for fun?
So as Mason was alluding to, I am really involved with this hobby called aquascaping. So aquarium plus like landscaping put together.
Oh, wow.
So I got into that when I was about 16 or 17, and it just started with a very simple aquarium, and it was just about the fish at the time. But I heard about aquatic plants and like the benefits of using them within the aquarium, just like how plants benefit us in our space. Having aquatic plants makes lives better for aquatic animals too. So I begged my parents. I was like, okay, this is a big ask, but I really want to set up like a pretty large aquarium, and I wanted to have live plants. I wanted a active substrate for them, so it's basically like a clay type soil, and it was probably like $200-300. But after that, the tank did well. So I started making content about it on YouTube and Instagram.
Oh, wow,
and then I started making more. My parents liked it so much, I got another tank and then another one. And then it just kept going. So at home, I probably have 5 or 6.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I got involved with this aquarium company called Aquarium Design Group in Houston. They are one of the largest aquascaping installation companies in the United States. So I just reached out on Instagram to one of the owners. I was like, hey, I saw you guys did this setup, and I was wondering how you did it because I'm trying to do something similar. And he's like, just come by. I was like, are you sure? And so I came by, and I've gotten connected with them. They're doing a Netflix show.
Oh, wow.
So cool. Yeah, it's so neat, and they're so friendly. I'm kind of like the baby there. I mean, everyone else is like, you know, family aged, like they have kids, and they are all really crazy about what they do. They've like gone internationally. There's competitions for it. So I've done some live streams. I would like to go to a conference for it in May. but
Wow.
the funds are low. But I absolutely love it. And that's actually how I heard about horticulture, because they sell aquatic plants in tissue culture cups. That's
okay.
the way they can keep the humidity high enough to keep the plants alive, but keep them on the shelves.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, this tissue culture stuff's awesome. Like, there's no pests. You have like hundreds of plantlets within a culture. I was like, that's what I want to do. So that's how I got into tissue culture in college.
Wow.
Yeah. So that hobby is totally taking me all sorts of places.
That's fascinating. I had no idea.
She's a pro. She has,
Yeah.
Now that all the renovations going on in the building, she has moved 2 of her aquariums into our teaching laboratory. So it's been nice to share with all the students. They're always fascinated when they come in. Who did this? And I just pointed
Hey,
out.
I need to see those.
Yeah.
Yes, they're pretty cool.
Well, you meant tissue culture. I think a lot of the general public has no idea what that is. Could you explain that, please?
I don't know if you want me to explain
Of
that. I
course.
think you'd be a lot better.
Yeah.
But tissue culture, to me, was growing plants in a type of medium that allowed for no pests, which was one of the best things about it. Sometimes you could still get viruses in the plants just if they have it. But it was... I think the idea of it to me more was just like, you can grow a ton of plants in a very compact space, and then they can be on the shelf for a really long period of time, depending on how much nutrients you put in your media. So it's basically, you get plants, you put it in a jar, and they just grow. that was like the most rudimentary way I could think of it at the time. But then when I started to understand, like, you're basically creating the most ideal, perfect environment for a plant to grow hundreds upon thousands of itself in a confined space, and then you can eventually move it out of there, and then you go from all of this to probably a whole greenhouse full of plants. That was just amazing. It was sort of like Doctor Who, where they have the little telephone box, and you walk in, and then it's a giant mansion. It was really cool.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, so you guys, I know you're a junior. Yeah, it seems like you've got great trajectory forward, and you're sort of in the middle of your Ph.D. right now. I mean, there are a lot of high school students out there, middle school students who are like, what am I going to do, right? Everybody's busy thinking about that. And we also see freshmen who come in who are not sure what life will have. What do you think horticulture has to offer as a profession?
It's really anything and everything. And I know that sounds crazy to someone that doesn't know about horticulture, but I kind of got woken up by that idea of being from the oil field. Where there's a business part for everything, kind of in the sense of horticulture. You have pots, you have media, you have tags, you have the production, you have tissue culture, you have salespeople, you have the social media marketers, and there's even just people, groundskeepers that just do, horticultural pruning.
Or garden managers.
And funny you say that. We were in the gardens the other day watering, and a mom was there with her 2 kids, a little bitty 4-year-old, 5-year-old girl, and she came up and she asked her mom, what are they doing? And she just said, we're watering. And she goes, man, I want to work here. How do you water? And so just things like that, the beautification of plants and how can I get involved? I mean, there's something for everybody. Floral design, food production. It's really endless. But most people, when parents hear, I want to go into horticulture, it's, what are you going to do? Well, what can't you do? There's so many avenues to go down.
Well, I obviously believe there's an abundance of professions within horticulture now. And of course, you can become a professor, and we need to replace ourselves. So, don't dissuade people from research.
No, I mean, education's
I think research,
too. Yeah.
What about you?
Remind me of the question. It's such a broad... could you say it one more time?
Mason, why don't you say what the question was?
Like how... horticulture, or how would you kind of explain
to the high school kids
and things like
who are looking for professions?
I guess from the viewpoint of someone who's kind of hopped around different emphases within horticulture, I know that they don't really teach horticulture classes in high school. So as you're taking your biology courses or maybe your environmental science courses, and you're thinking about doing those as a major, I feel that a lot of STEM majors, they do their degree, and then those pathways are a little bit unsure because, what is a biology job? Well, a lot of biologists go into horticulture, and a lot of STEM fields will lead you back to horticulture because what you're going to be working on with your skills is going to be the plants. So, I mean, why not start with horticulture? And then, it kind of helps guide you towards an emphasis a lot quicker than maybe I feel that maybe biochemistry or biology can, but you still get those classes as a hort major too.
Yeah. Do you have a magic wand to say how do we popularize the term horticulture so it becomes part of our vernacular?
That's a good question. I think we need to come up with a good mnemonic, but I'm not...
A new jingle?
A new jingle, yeah. Sometimes when I tell people I'm a horticulture and they go, what's that? It's plant science. Or, I grow plants or things like that. But I shouldn't just say I grow plants because it's so much more than that.
Yeah, it's so much more.
It's so much more than just plant science because you have the arts of it too.
I know that a lot of people have tried to change find a new term, this and that, but frankly, this is everything we eat. Healthy drink, coffee, coffee, wine, tea, and juices and fruits and vegetables and I think this is where the society is built on this. We all talk about everybody's eating their salads. They forget that is horticulture.
Yeah, I mean, people forget about fruit too. Most fruit production and things like that are horticultural crops.
So I'm just trying to. Part of the reason I asked you that question is because this is a question I ask all my guests in this podcast because I hope somebody's listening out there and it's like, yeah, now I know what is horticulture. We were recently at this. In an engineering building where we had high school kids come in. We were talking about, we were the only, I would say, plant science, food-based group there, talking to the kids. And that was my icebreaker. That's what I started my conversation with. Like, hey, do you know what is horticulture? I'll give you this gift or this candy if you tell me what is horticulture. Well, there were teachers there too, and they said, you know what? We need to do that more. We need to at least introduce that because we have about... just in Texas alone, the horticulture industry is worth $80 billion annually. It's a very important industry, which really fuels the economy. And if you expand that to the U.S., it's a massive industry. Obviously, that needs skilled people who know about that.
Sure.
As well. So, we've kind of organized our department around sustainability, wellness, and food security. I just wanted to see what do those terms mean to you? Sustainability.
Yeah, it's just so we talked about sustainability earlier as far as substrates go, and even floral design, huge push for sustainable flowers and products and foam. I think in horticulture we can't forget that what we're taking is from what the earth is giving us, and you have to be protective of that because our crops are coming from what we need to protect, and so you can't disregard or taint the earth in any way because we have to protect that. When you talk about, food security, it's in the same sense. We're growing the crops that provide us, and you have to be careful in how you farm. You don't want to go years without. And then our last one is wellness, and that all ties together with it. Wellness in the sense of biophilia in nature and people having a peaceful mind, anti-anxiety, being productive at work with plants in the atmosphere. But wellness in the sense of being healthy and food security as well.
What do you think about those terms?
That's hard to follow up after Mason. In terms of sustainability, I think when it comes to horticulture as an industry, I feel that it's really important that we provide plants that are meant to last. Because mean, when you every time you go to the plant store, you're like, oh, I'm going to get something new. But you already have so much at home. And I think it's also just educating people about how to, make things last longer. I think about when I go to the store these days, whether it be for clothes or food or like items at home, a lot of those times those things break and then I have to get new ones. But I'm thinking about back kind of like maybe in the 50s or the 60s when things would be made from good materials, they would last forever and there's something to pass down. The idea of like heirloom items, I think horticulturally having heirloom plants, kind of like how you've been growing your peonies, I think those are really important because it gives us connection to our past, but then bringing that towards the future, just all together is what's the same.
That's a great point, but also I think nature has solved that problem for us. It's given us the annual plants and the permanent plants, right? Mm-hmm. So of course, one of our very prominent ornamental plant producers, the Ellison Company, P.J. Ellison from there, she always says plants are a necessity, not a luxury. Yeah, so absolutely. Plants will die, of course, because they're, especially the ones that are just annuals, which are, they have a life cycle which ends within a year. Once you cut the flowers, they will die. So I think people should not be afraid to keep buying more.
Exactly.
But also the one, to include that. And I think that's really important point that you just made. But from an institutional perspective, I think sustainability for us also includes you guys. students, because we want to train you, and that's why I was asking, what's the message for high school kids? We need more students.
Sure.
So that we can train, provide the education background so that they can go and sustain these industries, right? So that's part of our sustainability push. But the other part is whatever knowledge we generate, whatever skills we provide you, you contribute to the economy. So whatever knowledge we generate through your research, for example, as you mentioned the word commercialization earlier, whatever you will generate, it will benefit some industry. They will have a new product that is more reliable when it's planted, right? So our businesses can grow as well. So we really want to help the farmers. That's, for us, sustainability is like a package. And then, of course, you mentioned quite a bit about the environment. And very well said about the wellness piece. I mean, flowers make us happy, healthy, mentally. But consuming fruits, vegetables, nuts, and partaking in wine and coffee and tea with your family and friends makes you also healthy, but also it benefits you physically. So wellness is a all-encompassing. And food security, I think, you mentioned that, but also I think one of the things is we have to have both the capability, that means the infrastructure, and the ability, the training. As you can see, we've broken down the concept. It's one part of our land grant mission, of course. That's exciting. So what's next for you? What are you doing this summer?
I will be working on a special topics project with Dr. Bergner. I'm looking to do a redesign of the atrium.
Oh,
of the
wow.
Horticulture building. I mean, the whole building's getting renovated, and we've had the same plants for maybe about 10 years now. So
That's
why
awesome.
not give it a new face?
That's amazing. That's amazing. What about you? What's next for you?
Lots of research projects. So I'm trying to get my next 2 chapters done, kind of already in progress, and put Trisha to work. Trisha's my student worker as well.
Yes.
So we'll be doing lots of greenhouse work and hopefully some observations in the field of existing plants. So my boss that trained me, that I got interested, told me if you're in ornamental production, plants don't get a day off. There's always a shadow having to watch over the plants. So yeah, I'm always there checking on them, and Trisha's there, and my other student worker, Caitlin. We're always tag teaming the work.
Well, that's what farmers say. There's no rest
There's no
day.
day off, no.
There's no day off. I mean,
But you can't be mad when you walk into a place with a bunch of pretty plants or flowering plants. So yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you for talking today. It's been fun to learn what you're doing. I mean, a whole. What did you say? Aquascaping? Wow, that's amazing. See, I didn't know anything about that.
It's pretty cool. You got to come see them.
I will check that out. And good luck with your research. Good luck with what you're doing. And thank you. Thanks and Gigam, Mr.
Gigam.
Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Horticultural Innovators. Subscribe if you want to learn more and spread the good word. Thanks and Gigam.